As the evil symbiote that was created to make Venom appear comparatively wholesome, Carnage has done more than his fair share of terrible things in his free time. As the poster boy for Marvel's most depraved and unhinged villains, anytime the alien-possessed serial killer isn't breaking as many laws and moral codes as possible almost seems like time wasted, because the whole purpose of the character is to do things that would make any other villain look too bad. If he's not torturing whole restaurants and cities, he's trying to kill those near and dear to him like some alien-possessed Michael Myers. In a sense, this is the highlight of Carnage as a character, because you know that anytime he appears in the comic, that some unmistakably awful stuff is about to go down. While this continual violence does make the symbiote and his host kind of predictable, you don't come to a Carnage comic expecting a murder mystery. You come just expecting the murder, and you're never disappointed. So, I'm Yoon from What Culture, and here are the 10 worst things Carnage has ever done. Number 10. Killing their grandmother. Carnage number 12, 2016. After almost being strangled by his umbilical cord in the womb, Cletus Cassidy was revived by the evil lord of the symbiotes, Null. While this information doesn't initially seem important in regards to him killing his grandmother, it means the villain was custom built by this god to receive the Carnage symbiote, which means he was born into the world with a lust for blood that would prove completely insatiable. And Cletus would begin to satiate this thirst for violence with his own family, starting with their pet dog, oh no, before moving on to more human targets, namely his own grandmother. Also no. After hearing one too many insults from the old woman, Cletus decides to take a short walk with his grand down a long flight of stairs, killing her in this first gruesome murder. This event would become public knowledge after Jubilee got an accidental look into the villain's memories, which uncomfortably launched her right into Cassidy's childhood secrets, and made his awful deed significantly more public. Number 9. Making the Red Goblin, The Amazing Spider-Man 795. It would be a bold-faced lie to try and say that the Green Goblin was never all that stable to begin with, but this doesn't excuse Carnage's decision to make the villain somehow even worse. When Norman Osborn bonds to the Carnage symbiote, he is made infinitely more brutal than he already was, with him threatening to brutally murder Spider-Man's family, friends, and loved ones should the hero continue to work as a superhero. As if this wasn't bad enough, the Red Goblin then also goes on to murder their own family, with them only narrowly being saved by the Fantastic Four and Agent Anti-Venom, the latter of which he kills anyways. Flash, no! The whole thing leads to a chain of pretty much endless madness and villainy, which is only stopped by Peter appealing to Osborn's arrogance to convince him to remove the symbiote from himself. Without this move, there's a pretty good chance that the Red Goblin's reign of evil would have run indefinitely, with Carnage to blame for Osborn's increasingly terrible antics. Number 8. Making their therapist go insane. Carnage Mind Bomb. When the guy giving you therapy sessions starts to lose it because of you, you have to consider that maybe the problems you have are a little more intense than the average bear. Unfortunately for Cletus's misguided psychologist, Mr. Curtis, Carnage's problems are on an entirely different level to ordinary people's, meaning their therapy session accidentally runs a little long enough that the chemicals preventing Cassidy from using his symbiote powers actually wear off. From here, it's the simple and awful case of Carnage drilling into their doctor's skull and showing him how the unstable villain sees the world, which naturally sends the psychiatrist sailing headfirst into madness, unable to distinguish the symbiote's version of reality as separate from his own. Curtis finishes the session by attacking the prison guards who let him in, naked, cannibalistic, and full of an intense inner rage, meaning that it's safe to say Carnage sabotaged the appointment well and truly. Number 7. Trying to kill their child. Venom vs. Carnage. With most of Carnage's family being dead, in jail, or Venom, it's perhaps not the biggest plot twist of all time when they immediately decide to kill their offspring after discovering it exists. In fact, Toxin would have died almost immediately after being born were it not for Venom, who took pity on the creature and formed a bizarre paternal bond with it whenever he realized the thing would technically count as their grandson. After a tense fight, Venom throws Carnage into some electrical equipment, which is precisely the only reason he doesn't end up murdering their own child after creating them. But this doesn't change the fact that Carnage made several attempts to kill their own offspring for no reason, which would also have involved killing the innocent police officer that Toxin was hiding inside. Number 6. Becoming Mass Carnage. Carnage number 4, 2011. Carnage becoming Mass Carnage, a form that was created after Cletus assimilated with a series of artificially produced symbiotes, could be considered a crime in name alone. However, it is also notably a crime against humanity, as creating this form involved killing countless people in order to take their symbiotes. Technically, even the symbiotes themselves are killed in this plan, as in order to assimilate with Carnage, their free will has to be pretty much destroyed, leaving them semi-sentient puppets of the villain, ready to carry out their will. This means that even Carnage abandoning them in order to escape is kind of harsh, as he essentially smushes together a bunch of symbiotes, kills their ability to think for themselves, and then ollies out of the nearest available exit, having ruined countless lives. If you're going to ruin a bunch of alien organisms' lives, at least make sure to keep them as cool henchmen for a while afterwards. It's the least you could do. Number 5. Infecting an entire prison. Absolute carnage. Starting off the Absolute Carnage event with some real drama, the series' first issue saw Cletus break into Ravencroft, a maximum security prison, and infect the entirety of said prison with a Grendel symbiote now seemingly permanently bonded to the villain, which would allow him to turn others into their mindless Carnage-based slaves. Among these minions would be Norman Osborn and John Jameson, both of whom appear to have gotten a pretty rough deal out of being bonded to Carnage's symbiote infection, looking like they've been dragged through the fires of hell by the time we actually get to see them. While it's awful in the sense that Carnage is amassing an army of mini Carnages to wield against those who oppose him, there is another even worse aspect to the whole thing. This is because the people Carnage is controlling are totally stripped of their will, and are forced to watch on as their hijacked flesh body is piloted into violence by the villain, including Miles Morales. Number 4. Making Benji Parker Kid Carnage, The Amazing Spider-Girl number 14. Turning a child into a bastion of evil is pretty safely on most people's list of evil deeds. As such, Carnage's decision to turn Benji Parker, Peter's son, into Kid Carnage is high up on their worst ever evil deeds, especially because it almost permanently damages the young child. Because the only way to undo Carnage's symbiote infection is to use a sonic noise near the young boy, which is the bane of the majority of symbiotes. Unfortunately, it's also the bane of most young children with underdeveloped eardrums, meaning that the noise deafened Benji in a move that would only be fixed by seriously expensive surgery funded by the Osborns. Managing to both create a child soldier and then make a scenario where that child has to be maimed to not be a human time bomb is so evil that it comparatively makes things like petty theft almost look like good deeds in comparison. Number 3. Being a minion for Space Satan, Web of Venom, Carnage Born. With Null being, for all intents and purposes, a god of literal evil, responsible for the corruption and destruction of whole civilizations, teaming up with him manages to do what few other moments manage, making Carnage seem more evil than usual. Because when Cassidy is yet again revived by a cult who worship Null, he decides to share in their goal to bring the long-dormant old deity back, even though he kills the cult in order to feed upon them. Said goal involves killing basically anyone who's ever so much as smelled a symbiote, meaning that Carnage realized this and then decided that the endless murder of mostly innocent superheroes sounded right up their alley. If planning 36 brutal murders in order to awaken ancient evil doesn't sound like a terrible thing to do, well, then nothing does. Number 2. Killing an entire restaurant. Deadpool vs. Carnage. Even in the delightfully twisted world of Deadpool comics, Carnage still manages to be just that little extra messed up. During the pages of Deadpool vs. Carnage, this is proven especially true, when the villain holds an entire restaurant hostage for a light spot of murder and torture. While we don't explicitly see Carnage kill the women and children, unlike the unfortunate gruesome deaths of the men who tried to stop him, it seems pretty heavily unlikely that he let them go free with their choice of snack as an apology. Instead, it seems all too likely that each inhabitant of the restaurant became the creature's snacks, as the Carnage that we see fight Deadpool seems even crueler than usual. That's really saying something, when you consider the serial killer's usual standard of monstrousness. The whole thing really serves to set up Carnage as a worthy opponent for a man who can't be killed, making for a fascinating dynamic when the two different types of crazy clash together. Number 1. Infecting an entire city. Carnage USA. Carnage USA is the one Marvel comic that desperately deserves to be adapted onto the big screen, if only so we can finally have the all-out symbiote-based horror marathon we all sorely deserve. It'll probably be even more crazy somehow, because you're adding a wig-wearing Woody Harrelson to the mix and a banter soundtrack from Eminem. Anyway, this series details Cletus and his pet symbiote single-handedly destroying the town of Doverton by infecting its inhabitants and forcing them into awful scenarios. This is best shown with the unfortunate case of one family, where we see the symbiote slowly infect first the baby, then the youngest son Cole, and then the rest of the family. Infection isn't the end of the fun, however, as after being infected, the townspeople are forced to submit to Carnage's demands of them, which range from making lemonade to murdering their loved ones, although every request manages to have its own nightmarish end results. It also involves one of the single grossest scenes in Spider-Man history, which involves carnage, a meat locker, and approximately 3,000% of your daily recommended viewing intake of human flesh. Oh god, where's the eye bleach when you need it?
Hello YouTube, we're turning things up to 11 with the launch of What Culture Music.
It's our brand new channel featuring all those lists you just can't get enough of, including creepy hidden messages in your favorite pop songs,
as well as radio-friendly songs that detail literal murder. That's as well as Chatty Faces, where we get personal with you on our sordid musical tastes, in-depth discussion podcasts, and we're even doing quality fun stuff like tournaments and quizzes too.
There's going to be something for everybody, so come on over and make some sweet music with us.
Or just watch the videos, that works too.
Like, share and subscribe at the link below, and we will see you there.
Bye.
That was our list. What messed up Carnage moment do you think is the worst of all? Let us know in the comments below, and please remember to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. I've been Ewan. Keep watching What Culture Comics for up-to-date info surrounding absolute carnage, and I'll see you next time. Bye!